Welcome back, dear viewers, and you are still watching the Breakfast Show, and in this edition of the program we will talk about the situation and the recent developments in Lebanon. But first, let me welcome my dear guest, Dr. Yasser, Tantawy, International Relations Expert. Good morning.
Good morning.
And as we said earlier, that we are going to highlight the recent developments in Lebanon, as Egypt has reiterated its firm support for Lebanon's sovereignty and stability, as renewed tensions in the south raise concerns over the fragile ceasefire. Details follow.
Egypt has once again underscored its commitment to supporting Lebanon's security and sovereignty, with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi praising the ongoing efforts to strengthen the authority of Lebanese national institutions across all territories. During recent discussions, President Sisi emphasized the importance of reinforcing state institutions as a foundation of stability, highlighting Egypt's consistent position in backing Lebanon's unity and independence. This support comes at a critical time as the country continues to navigate both political and security challenges. On the Lebanese side, President Michel Aoun expressed appreciation for Egypt's continued solidarity, describing it as a vital pillar of regional cooperation. He stressed the importance of Arab support in helping Lebanon maintain stability and rebuild trust in state institutions. Meanwhile, the situation on the ground remains tense. Despite a ceasefire agreement, reports of visual shelling in southern Lebanon has raised alarms, with violations threatening to undermine the fragile calm. The escalation has coincided with the return of displaced Lebanese people to their homes, many of whom had fled earlier of violence. These developments highlight the delicate balance between political efforts and security realities. While diplomatic support, particularly from key regional players like Egypt, continues to push for stability, ongoing violations risk reversing progress on the ground. As Lebanon moves forward, the need for full respect of the ceasefire and strengthened national institutions remain essential.
Welcome back, and now Dr. Yasser, as we've just heard this report about the recent developments in Lebanon, how do you see the situation there now?
I think Israel is doing what they needed to do from beginning. They were having an idea they must have from 8 to 14 kilometers in depth in Lebanon to secure their area. But it was not only a border protection, but it was the aim was to get the fresh water from the Litani Bridge and so on, and to create a DMZ, let's say, safe zone for them. The issue is, which is clear, that when they bombed in the last few days with white phosphor and so on, that makes the entire land unable to be reclaimed or to be utilized and so on. That means they enforce people to leave the area forever. Technically, what the Israelis looking for from 1994-96, which was an issued plan that they need to reach the Litani dam and to have the entire fresh water. In addition to that, that means their connection with Golan in Syria will be like an open area for all of them. This is what they looked for, and their claims about securing themselves, defending themselves, it is one of the, almost not the rare, the only version in history that any country that like to protect its border by invading other countries. For them, they did that. They didn't care about UN, international agreements and so on, and that's why they started. But under the pressure of Egypt and the other supporters, they understand that there is no further escalation, because everybody is damaging, especially Israel is having some issues with US and Iran and so on. So now with the talks that's held and continuity achieved, I think we are in a good position to say that Lebanon will get back its sovereignty for the entire land they are having, but hope that Israel will leave South Lebanon, actually, which is not yet discussed, because they discussed only ceasefire, but they didn't discuss the return of land yet. So let's see how far it will go for negotiations, because I think it's not clear yet.
So, sir, to what extent the security in Lebanon is essential for the security of the whole region?
The problem with Lebanon is due to lots of restrictions that are that was applied from the West on Lebanon as a country. They didn't have a consolidated or huge armed forces like air defense, air forces and so on. They have very simple Tucano planes, some very light weapons and so on. So they didn't have that power. But the problem is they are having lots of, let's say, racial and ethnic and religious-based tribes who are dividing Lebanon into segments. So if we didn't conserve that, it will be like a very big, what we call it, population bomb for the entire region, which means if it vanishes or something happens severe for them, I think the backfire will be bad because it will destruct everything and we will re-destabilize again Syria, Iraq and so on because of that. So Lebanon, if even is a small country in size and in population, but the impact and the passive fire will be huge, especially nobody will trust the US and so on in long-term politics like what they claim to sponsor the talks with between Lebanon and Israel. So US in the position to be like the sponsor and grandfather of the agreement, which is under development now, sponsored while Lebanon is relying, to be clear in that, relying on the strength of the Egyptian influence with the US administration concerning the Lebanon case, which is a huge effort even declared by the Lebanese government for a long time now. But we hope it will go well. There are lots of complications and we believe that not everything declared is what's really done.
Yes.
So I think there are lots of hidden effort not to be disclosed for currently because there are lots of pros and cons and all of that. And politics is politics. You cannot show up what you know or what you did or agreed for already. That's it. Very simple. Let's hope so.
So, sir, also if we talk about Egypt's support to the Lebanese people and to its sovereignty and security, how do you see Egypt's efforts to support the Lebanese people?
If we remember since February or even January, and even in the past few years, Egypt was always supporting the sovereignty of Lebanon by lots of satellite trips on a very short time, even in critical times, like in war with of Iran and so on. Egypt conducted several meetings with the Lebanese government at all levels, and lots of phone calls, mutual phone calls at high level for both parties. So technically, we didn't leave Lebanon alone, and we were supporting. Actually, I believe it was supporting Lebanon was critical in that duration because we understand that Israel will abuse that to get what they want, and this is what happened. And if you get back to the even Lebanese media in the last duration, they said we were always having a message from Egypt about what is going to happen, and unfortunately it always happens. But the problem is Lebanon is having some sort of short resources in capacity to be advised because of your power balance in the favor of Israel, of course. So practically we didn't stop supporting Lebanon, even it was increased massively in the past duration. Even the talks with the US and Israel back in US is, we cannot say hosted by, but coordinated by Egypt, because we know all players, we discussed with them all details, and there were lots of preparation in the backyard that was properly developed and communicated with all parties. So I think we increased massively the coordination with the Lebanon government and Lebanon state in specific to achieve tangible results and to avoid collapsing of Lebanon due to such Israeli engagement with them.
Also, yesterday, President Fattah Sisi received the Kuwaiti Foreign Minister Sheikh Jaber Al Ahmed Al Sabah in Cairo, and the head of state stressed Egypt's firm rejection to any violation of the sovereignty of Kuwait or any other Arab state, asserting full support for Kuwait's security and stability. How do you see the significance of this visit by the Kuwaiti Foreign Minister and the timing?
We understand that in politics, normally once we have a visit, that means there are lots of side talks which is not declared to the media or even communicated. That means there are very personal level communication that has to be coordinated for lots of topics. In addition, it represents the strength of values of communication between Egypt and the other Gulf countries, GCC countries, regardless of the claims of some individuals who claim else. But the value of communication between Egypt and the GCC countries all over did not stop. Actually, it was increased massively, regardless it is declared or not. But it was even the action that Egypt taking to support that trend through the talks in Pakistan and so on was very obvious. So if we didn't do that, who else is going to do it? This is very simple. But as we say, such a visit means it came in a critical time, not for Egypt, but for the region, actually. And it means that there are lots of side talks that was discussed, and I think agreed to a certain extent. We can say that Kuwait is having some political guarantees of certain trend or direction in negotiation discussion. Especially Kuwait is the closest country to Iran. And due to the diversification in population in Kuwait, it will have an internal problems if that's not resolved. And if you remember, in the last quarter, Egyptian security supported Kuwaiti's security in lots of internal cases, which was destructive to the community itself. And it was declared in a very simple way, but the value was high. So, and practically we need to understand that Kuwait is only less than 300 kilometers from Iran, which is the closest country to them, and it will take no time to cause any destruction.
So, sir, also Iran is not currently planning to attend talks with the United States, and state media made the announcement after President Donald Trump ordered U.S. negotiators to travel to Pakistan on Monday, just days before a ceasefire in the Middle East expires. How do you see the future of diplomatic solutions?
First of all, we need to understand that if you have a diplomatic negotiation or political negotiation, it doesn't mean people should meet together. Because I think the last meeting was only to set up the framework of what to be discussed, and they declared that after that, as we said. Now they are getting to deal through a proxy agreements, because confronting both parties is not favor of any negotiation, because both parties are linguistic, claim they are extremely powerful and have no limit to stop. So practically, I think to make a successful negotiation, it will be done through proxy agreements. That means Pakistan, coordinated with Egypt, will support the coordination between the parties in negotiation, and to have resolution of the requirements for both parties to try to reach to a suitable margin of acceptance. But surely it has to be done through proxy negotiation. It cannot be done through direct negotiations, because direct negotiations will mean direct confrontation and lots of claims. Especially, they have very hard, let's say, backfires from once the American administration started disclosing lots of points which was not even agreed and so on, just to sell to the media and so on, and sell to the public, which is not favored. So I think doing that was recommended by negotiating parties, to be very specific, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Egypt, while everybody will be a little bit neutralized. So if the US administration is going to declare something, it will be in their own favor. Nobody will accept it, because there will be a proxy in between who will be responsible on we cannot say interpretation, but to smooth the requirements between both parties in which to reach to an acceptable level of points. Until now, they need to list, I think in this meeting they will try to list the points need to be discussed, regardless of the claims in the media about the enrichment duration, 20 years and so on. Nothing was presented in it, nothing was presented officially. It was always wording in the media, not a formal statement of requirements that was listed in a very clear way. So let's see how it will go, but of course having proxy negotiation will be a successful factor, as we hope.
So, sir, also the ongoing U.S. blockade of Iranian ports has been a significant sticking point, and issue further complicated by the American destroyer on Sunday firing on and seizing an Iranian ship that tried to evade it. So how do you see this blockade?
It's a show, big show, from both parties. From both parties.
You believe that?
I believe that 100%, because they try to do their best, both parties, and now we are in negotiations, so each party has the right to show up they are powerful and having some control. So both parties are doing that now perfectly, in which they could have a negotiating point. So now they are looking to negotiate to open the strait, which was already open before. Now it's closed. So let's see how it will go. But it's a negotiating point by the end of the day. It's business. It's business.
Yes. So, sir, we will going to have this report on the economic fallout of closing the Strait of Hormuz, as rising tensions in the Strait of Hormuz have once again disrupted one of the world's most critical energy routes, triggering fears of a global economic shock. Details in the coming report.
The closure of the Strait of Hormuz marks a critical escalation in global tensions, with Iran reimposing control over the strategic waterway and reportedly firing on commercial vessels.